When September comes, there'll be a lot of young adults heading off to college that need extra support. My next guest, Zakiyah Pierce, decided that a quilt would be part of that support. Starting from scratch, Cozy Quilts for Quilters is in its 5th year, matching quilts with students that need them. She's had to grow her skills as a quilter to match the demand and call on a few friends. So grab your sewing and a cup of tea, and here is my interview with Zakiyah Pierce. Welcome to the show, Zakiyah. Now, I understand you're in Texas. Are you from Texas? Are you a Texas girl?
I am not from Texas. I'm originally from Inglewood, California.
Oh, wow. Were you a quilter before you arrived in Texas?
I was not. That's where I became a quilter, here in Texas. I don't think had I stayed in Inglewood or LA, I don't think I would have become a quilter, because I don't think I would have crossed any paths, if that makes sense. I became a quilter when I came in Joann's in Arlington, Texas, and I saw an embroidery machine going at its own. And then I met one of the ladies who worked there who was a quilter, and I call her my quilt pimp. She got me addicted.
Well, I find that 65% of the world's quilting is done in the US, but out of that, I think another 65% of it is being done in Texas. Like, there's just so much quilting coming out of Texas.
There is.
Did you start with a class, or did you just start on your own?
I started with my friend Joycelyn. She just kind of took me under her wing. She made most of the quilts that I saw here in Texas were made with the what is that? The older fabric, the not modern. What is it called?
It's sometimes called primitives or Civil War, or maybe the flour sacks.
All of the above. And that did not make me interested in it at all. And then when I saw some of the quilts that she made with more updated fabrics, more modern fabrics, that's when I became interested. But mostly here, like you said, here in Texas, you do see the primitive and the flour sacks and the dark colors. And like the quilt behind you and the quilt behind me, I like light, bright colors, something cheerful, something that makes you happy. And those colors and they make me happy.
So you said you started in Joann's. Were you a crafter before you started quilting? Were there other things you like to do?
Not really. When I moved here, I thought I wanted to do scrapbooking, and that was not hitting my fancy at all. I had a whole bunch of paper that I did nothing with. Plus, I was working full time, and I had 3 kids. So a single mom of 3 children trying to find an outlet. So scrapbooking wasn't it. The paper wasn't it. The paper was pretty, but it wasn't it. I also, as a child, I loved to color. So every year, my staple Christmas gift was a box of 64 crayons. So I've always loved color, but I never dreamed that it would have turned into quilting because of color. Not really artsy. I guess it was there, just dormant, but not really artsy at all.
So is picking at the fabric then your favorite part of quilting?
That's part of it. Online shopping is also a guilty pleasure. Shame on me. Picking out the fabric, putting them together. One of my current struggles is still, like, some people have a gift of putting the colors together. I still need help. Like, I don't do fat quarter bundles because I still like to pick what I like. So just learning to put them together. Now, I do go to a quilt store when I need help with that.
So how did Cozy Quilts for Scholars start?
Backing up just a little bit, my family, we are all educators. So my stepfather, before he passed away, was an educator. My mother was a teacher. She's retired. My sister is assistant principal. My stepsister is a librarian. My other stepsister is also in education. And then I found out on my father's side, there are people that are in education. So long story short, my sister was mentoring a young lady in California who was coming here to go to college. And so I told my sister I would make her a quilt. And that's how Cozy Quilts got started. And then my son and I were driving somewhere, and the name came into my head, and I had him write it down. The original name was going to be Cozy Quilts for College, but we couldn't use the word college because it had an insinuation of a school. So they made us change it. I called another friend and got, she's really good with words, got not really a synonym, but instead of college, we decided to use scholars, which is actually more apropos to what we do. So that is how it came about. Tiana doesn't mind me using her name. She got here. The quilt wasn't quite made. It was laying on the floor because that's my drawing board. And she mentioned that she liked it and she likes quilts. But when I told her it was for her, she didn't believe me. So I told her again, and she finally believed me. And then eventually she got her quilt. But she's one of the few young people that I ever met firsthand that said, "Oh, I love quilts." So I was glad.
I was watching your video on your website of, I think it was the second person to get a quilt. And she was talking about how important it was, how empowering it was on those nights when she was so tired and she wanted to give up. And then she saw this beautiful quilt, and that gave her the strength just to keep
That was
on going.
that was Kendra. She's a blessing. We stay in touch. She's here in Texas too.
So, how do you find the scholars?
I don't remember exactly how it started, but I think I must have contacted a counselor here. Well, the crisis counselor's here. So I think we have 5 high schools. And I eventually got in touch with one of the counselors, I'm thinking, and then she got me in touch with the person who was in charge. And then we all met and I let them know what I do. And then each one of them picks one or two students that they think would be a good match based on need and based on not just financial need, but that need, and then someone who would really appreciate and find the quote worthy. I didn't want to give it to someone who was going to ball it up and throw it, for the dogs or exactly somewhere that it shouldn't be. I wanted somebody who would really cherish it. So I let them choose because they know the students, and then we have an application that they fill out, which is really just something to document it, and then they choose.
So, are you giving them exclusively to foster children who are aging out of the system?
No, we don't. We don't really have a preference. Tiana just happened to be the first recipient who was a foster student who was going to college. They don't really age out until they're 21ish. If they're in school, they can stay in the system. They'll stay with their social worker. They'll continue to get assistance until they're like 21 or something like that. Or I think it's 4 years after high school. But the other ladies were not foster care. They were just recipients that were worthy of what I was doing. Not that I make them worthy. It is a student that will just receive the quilt with love and really appreciate and cherish it.
What are the challenges that you face in making these quilts for these children or young adults?
That's a good term. Most of them I do myself. I have found some people that a friend of mine will help. That another lady called and said she had a quilt that she was making. But the greatest challenge, to be quite honest, if I may, is when people donate the quilts, it has to be something lively and bright and cheerful. I don't know of any young person, and if there are, they're few and far between, that would like what did you call them?
The primitives.
I just don't know of a young person that would like a primitive quilt. I don't like them, so it would be hard for me to give them away because they're dull. And when I think of a dorm room, I think of something that needs to be cheerful, somewhere you want to come back to, somewhere your happy place while you're away, because that's all you have is your room. That's yours, that you can go to and find solace. That's all you have. So you would want it, I would think they would want it to be cheerful.
So are you making the quilt first and then giving it, or are you getting a little bit of input from the person so that you're making the color or whatever that they would like?
With Kendra's, I had time. The young lady that was in the other video, I had time to make hers the way she wanted it. I do get input, and I have, as we all have done, made 2 or 3 quilts in a month. With Kendra's, I made hers per her request. She got to pick the fabric. Some of the other, like another one I made was black and purple. She said she wanted purple. I had a jelly roll, so that was easy. And then another, I think it was that same year, she said she wanted blue or yellow, or she's a combination of colors. And I happen to have the fabric, so that made it easy. But my goal is to always have them choose what they want. We're giving away one this year to a student in Inglewood from my former high school. And it was already made. It's blue. And I had one student who did not come and pick hers up. I chose her. She did not come and pick it up. She didn't return any of my phone calls. So hers is now going to a worthy recipient.
So in doing all this organization, did you have a beginner mistake that you've been able to correct and make it easier for you?
Having enough quilts for the recipients ahead of time. So you don't have to make a quilt in a week. That, and just now I have my stashes, of course, it improves every year. I do one of my quilt guilds, if I may say, Quilting Sisters of Color here in Dallas. Two quilting sisters donated a plethora of quilts. And I recently procured a long arm. So I'm just trying to get the long arm completely set up so those quilts can be quilted. And the plan is to show them a couple of quilts based on their color preference, and they can choose for that. But ideally, in my mind, I guess the long-term goal would just to have a room, like a banquet room, where they could come in and select which one they want, that they would be all hanging or folded or some kind of, like going shopping.
I used to make quilts with a guild that I belonged to, the Stony Creek Guild, and the police office, and they made charity quilts for the local police department. And they gave them to young children that were in need. They had a terrible situation, and they would bring them in and they would walk them into this room where the quilts were lined up, and they were told that they got to choose which one they wanted. And the police officer said that, one, the quilts gave them an awful lot of comfort, and two, the fact that they had a choice made it even more special. So that would be a lovely thing to have.
Yeah, that's major for me, that they like it. They have to like it. If you don't like it, please do not hurt my feelings. Tell me you don't like it. We will find something else. Pick something you like. I don't think that anybody should have to take what they get. I think people should be allowed to choose, no matter what their income level or their parents' income level. I think choice is major.
So do you have a favorite pattern that you work through? Are they all the same pattern, or do you mix them up, or do you have like 5 or 6?
Jaybird Quilts is my long-term favorite. Her quilts, like the one behind me, Northern Lights, that's what it's called. And then the blue one that's given away today is also a Jaybird quilt. It is Boomerang. I've done, me and my sisters, I have one of their books. I think in that rush when I needed 3 quilts quickly, I think I did 2 or 3 from their book. I don't know what the name of it is. Jaybird Quilts is pretty much my standard favorite, and they provide a challenge. This one was hard for me because I was kind of new at it, but I made 2. So this is the second of the 2. The Boomerang one was super hard. And I have some other ones in store that I would like, in the plans that I would like to make, but I don't have a favorite one. I also did, like you have behind you, a type of log cabin. I find those also a little challenging because you almost have to be perfect for them to come out right.
I call this my lemonade quilt because I actually made this for a quilt and then I cut it all wrong. So this is what I made out of this. This is what I made out of the scraps.
Gotcha.
But I was doing it perfectly. It was absolutely perfect to a certain point. And then I forgot to trim them to the right size. And so then it became stretchy. And it is, the outside bit is just a little bit more wavy than it should be. But I know what you're talking about with the log cabins. They've got to be kind of perfect to make them work.
I made it for my past, and it's not quilted, but it's a log cabin. You have seen it, kind of a cross log cabin. And there was just one that just would not act right. And I was determined that quilt was going to be perfect. And I finally got it. And then I looked at it and go, oh, I see it. Another mistake, but it was a color mistake, not a sewing mistake. But it's still, no one knows that but me.
Have you taught any of your family members to quilt now? Are they joining in?
No, ma'am. Not interested. My only family members that are here are my 3 children. I have taught a couple of friends to quilt, but no family members. My mom sewed, my grandmother sewed, my sister sewed, but my sister is not in the least bit interested in quilting.
Maybe once you get that long arm up and running, maybe you can talk in a couple of your kids to help out.
I hope so. And I was blessed. I got one with the computer, so it doesn't seem like I'm excited to use it, but it's that learning curve with that is really big. Just getting it set up, that learning curve is a lot.
Well, I've had my long arm now for about 6 months, and I am so much more comfortable with it. At the 1 month mark, I was more than a little frustrated, but I was able to get some good instruction from a good teacher. Even though we were in isolation, we did it over the phone,
Okay.
and I just kept working at it.
Okay.
And now I really enjoy it.
I'm excited to use it, and I've wanted one for forever. And I did see your video of you putting yours together, but I'm excited to use it. It's very intimidating, and I didn't think it would be intimidating, but I guess it is.
It's a total different skill set, right? Like whatever you use for piecing, just because you're a good piecer doesn't make you a good long armor. So I think part of it is just being comfortable with that new learning curve.
Well, I have used the long arm at other places and feel very comfortable, but now that it's here and it has a computer and there's no person standing right there to tell you, okay, do this, okay, do that, next you do this, okay, we'll go ahead and get started. And then when you roll it, there's no one there standing there with you to help you. So that's my intimidation. But I promise I will get there.
So we talked briefly about your use of color. How has your use of color changed since you're now making all these quilts? Are you more comfortable with it? Are you still looking for, like, has your favorite color changed?
My favorite color has not changed. It's been my favorite color since elementary school. It's green. No, I don't make just green quilts. Actually, I kind of shy away from green because most people, there are not many of us that have green as a favorite color. Most people like blue, but again, I try to, ideally in the past before lovely COVID hit, I would email the counselors and in January, which would give me like a 6-month lead. And then the students would tell me what they like. So I had time to, make what they wanted. But again, now I have some quilt tops that are ready to go. And hopefully in the future, when I choose, they'll like what we have. I hope. So I don't have to be in a rush to make them.
What kind of label do you put on these quilts for scholars?
I bought a fabric panel and it has labels, and then they were blank. And then I just write in there Cozy Quilts for Scholars, recipient number, the year, and their name. And then I had a donation quilt. She put a little story, not really a story, but an encouraging phrase in there for a student on one of them. Ideally, I would like to learn I'll either pay for them, somebody to make them, which is my preference, but I would like to learn how to do them on the computers. So that each one is more the same as opposed to my handwriting. I have great handwriting, but I think if I was able to print them, and I would like our logo on there.
You can do that through a company called Spoonflower. You can just make yardage. And so there'll be like maybe 4 across or 8 across, depending on what size of it. And then, on your design, then you can just put, recipient number, person's name, who made it. But you can also, I'm not sure what type of sewing machine you have, but you can also then go in with your sewing machine and embroider that in.
I have a Viking, but the Viking, in my opinion, does not like little bitty print. The smaller the embroidery, the worse it comes out. Yeah. And I'm really picky with that. So I'll either use Spoonflower. I did find a young lady on Etsy. I really like hers. I just haven't gotten to that step yet. Like with Spoonflower, that sounds ideal. And I guess I could just go back in and write with an ink pen the year. But I'd still have to write in their name. I'd still have to write in the year. I'd still have to write in the recipient number, but it would have my logo on it. So I just have to work around that.
So I have a video coming up probably within the next 6 months on ways to make a label. And a friend of mine instructed me on how to treat the fabric so that you can print with your inkjet and the ink will stay.
Are most printers inkjet?
They're either laser or they're inkjet. So the one that has the 4 or 5 different, like the 4 different cartridges, the CMYK, that's an inkjet. Okay. And there's a compound that you use to treat the fabric ahead of time so that ink stays in.
Okay. I'll be watching. Looking forward to that.
Do you still make quilts for your family?
No one in my family has gotten a quilt from me.
Are they wanting one?
One son will let me make it for him. I just haven't gotten to it. And I have plans to make one for another family member. I'm going to not say that family member's name because I haven't. I have the pattern picked out, but I haven't mentioned it to the person. And all of the little bitty 2-inch squares are cut out, but I haven't gotten there yet.
You mentioned that you're a member of a quilt guild.
Yes.
And have you been a member long?
I would say 3, maybe 4 years. When COVID hit, we just, it put everything to a halt. So I'm sure that's not uncommon with quilt guilds. We're looking forward to meeting back in person, and we meet once a month on Zoom. We've been doing that. But of course, it's fun, but it's not as fun as meeting in person. You can't hug through Zoom.
I know that is so hard. But the advantage to a Zoom meeting is that you can be working on a project while the meeting's going on.
This is true. And then we have a really good lady who puts together a newsletter, and people send in their work in progress or the quilts that they've done. A lot of those ladies are retired. I'm not retired yet. So they get a lot more done than I am able to get done.
Let's talk about COVID, because I think you started this initiative just before COVID hit. Has that complicated things for you at all?
No, that started in 2017. So we're going on 4 years. The only thing that has really stopped is meeting in person. Like we were going to do one. Ideally, we wanted to do one last year, but it worked out because I didn't have any really quilts quilted, and we couldn't meet in person anyway. So it was fine. It's one of those things. It is what it is. You just have to deal with it, suck it up, whatever, and keep it moving. I'm sure there are other quilters who can understand when I say, as a teacher, it is super hard. I don't know about other occupations, but as a teacher, it is super hard to come home and quilt. I think every part of your body is exhausted. You're mentally exhausted. You're physically exhausted. You're tired because you've been talking all day, maybe a little behavior correcting. So I'm exhausted. I'll just speak for myself. And when I come home, if I go upstairs to my quilting room, all I can do is sit there. Sometimes I can't even get upstairs. I'm just exhausted. Even on the weekends, just recovering. So school was out like May 26th. So I've had a couple of days to recover, and I've been upstairs. I'm working on finishing up an Underground Railroad quilt that I started in January of 2020. So I'm trying to finish that before I create any more UFOs.
The infamous UFOs.
I'm trying to finish them. I just want them done. Now that I have a long arm, I have no excuse.
So what would you like from my viewers? Would you like them to donate quilt tops? Would you like them to donate complete quilts? Would you prefer them to contact you and then you assess whether they have something to give? What would you like them to do?
Ideally, if they have quilt tops, this one behind me is made for a twin extra long. So it's pretty big. It's 70 by 100. That is the size that I tried to give, because the beds at the dorms are twin extra long. And when you fit the 70 by 100 on the bed, it covers up the 3 sides and the back. I don't know if they'll have a dust ruffle. I don't know, but I just wanted to cover the 3 sides. If quilters have quilt tops that are that size, they are more than welcome to contact me, as long as their feelings won't be hurt if I say no. It has to be right for a young adult. Fabric, I will be more than happy to receive. If they want to donate a sheet set, that would be ideal as well. If they want to donate pens, pencils, or paper, that would be ideal as well. Anything that they think a teenager could use. Ideally, I want to get Cozy Quilts for Scholars to the point where we donate not only the quilt, but a sheet set and pencils, pens, paper, not necessarily everything for a dorm room, but things that the student would be able to use. And if you can think of anything else that might be helpful, that'd be great.
Problem we had when my daughter went off to college was, they have these extra long beds, but you can't find sheet sets that are for tall.
I have found a sheet set. The thread count is like 1,800. So, they're really nice, but they're deep and they're able to fit those beds. So this year, the young lady that got the quilt, she also got a sheet set. Kendra's group did not get a sheet set, but the quilts, the kids before the COVID hit, they got sheet sets, and I haven't gotten any complaints that they didn't fit. So I think the ones that are super deep will fit those extra long beds. Tuesday Morning has them on occasion. It's just something that you have to be on the lookout when you're out shopping. You have to be on the lookout. And it's mostly the, I don't want to say it's not the big box stores, but the others, the Tuesday mornings, the Marshalls, the TJ Maxx's, those are the kind of stores that typically have them because they take the things from the other stores that don't sell.
So if people want to contact you, how do they get a hold of you?
I am Cozy Quilts for Scholars on the IG or Instagram. I am Cozy Quilts for Scholars on Facebook. And also on Facebook, I am Zakiyah Pierce. So any of those ways would be just fine.
And you have a website?
I do. It is Cozy Quilts for Scholars.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate your time. I think you're doing something absolutely fabulous. And I'm going to see if I have some fabric here that I can send off to you.
Oh, I'll be so happy. I'm so excited and so grateful for you having me. Thank you so very much. And I'm still excited, even though we're going to get off, I am still just excited and grateful. And thank you for having me.
I hope you've enjoyed my interview with Zakiyah Pierce. If you go to her website, you'll see an interview with some previous recipients, and you can see how valuable a quilt can be. I have her contact information in the notes below. If you want to donate a sheet set, a quilt, or anything else, please contact her directly. Or maybe this will inspire you to start your own initiative. Next up on Karen's Quilt Circle is Kathy Hay, and we will be talking about big, bodacious goals that stretch your skills, patience, and time. And we'll also be talking about her own journey recreating the 1902 Worth peacock dress. You don't want to miss it, so be sure to subscribe. Next time you're in your sewing room, be sure to have Karen's Quilt Circle playing in the background while you sew. I have interviewed so many amazing guests. Let one inspire you. Last week, I also uploaded my video on 10 ways to make a half square triangle. I'll leave a link to that in the notes as well. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell beside the subscribe button so that YouTube will notify you when I make new videos. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest at Just Get It Done Quilts, and of course my website, justgetitdonequilts.com. So take care, and I'll see you next time.